Hey folks, you really think they're happy, don't you? You think they've moved on, that they're living their best life, that they barely even remember your name. That thought is eating you alive. But let me open your eyes to a truth most people never see. Happiness is not always real. What you see is a carefully staged performance, a mask put on for the world to believe. The big smiles, the loud laughter, the sudden glow-up. It's not proof they've moved on. It's proof they need you to think they have. Ask yourself this. If they truly didn't care, why would they need to prove anything? Why the extra effort to show the world they're thriving? If they were truly at peace, you wouldn't even be a thought in their mind. But the moment they start posting more, laughing harder, making sure you see their so-called happiness, it's not strength, it's a message meant for you. And you're falling into the trap, watching their every move, analyzing every little detail, convincing yourself they've replaced you. But here's the brutal truth. You are the one keeping them powerful. The more you react, the more you feed their illusion. The more you believe it, the weaker you feel. This is where you take back control. This is where you remember what Stoicism teaches. The strongest person is not the one who reacts. It's the one who stays unmoved, the one who doesn't check their page, doesn't ask mutual friends, and doesn't wonder who they're with. A person who controls their emotions is someone unforgettable. So ask yourself, are you ready to see through the illusion? Are you ready to stop letting their existence control your emotions? Then start now. If you're done believing the lie, if you're ready to take your power back, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I see through the illusion. Now let's begin. Number 1, the harsh truth about their so-called happiness. You see the photos, the bright grins, the posed angles, the flawless lighting. Everything seems perfectly arranged to broadcast one loud message. I'm better off now. But as the old saying goes, not all that glitters is gold. Think about it. If they were genuinely content, would they need to stage every snapshot so meticulously? True joy is like a quiet lake. It's serene and self-contained. It doesn't scream for attention or chase after an audience. It simply exists. So why do they do it? Why curate a spectacle designed to make everyone assume they're happier than ever? It's often a defense mechanism, a cloak they wear to hide the gaps and bruises underneath. It's the same reason people might post endless photos of an extravagant meal, but never mention the debt they took on to afford it. When the lights are off and the curtains close, the reality can be far less glamorous. Like a well-edited movie trailer, social media offers only the highlights, leaving the struggles on the cutting room floor. You might ask, but what if I'm reading too much into it? Maybe they really are just having a great time. Here's a question in return. When someone's genuinely at peace, do they obsess over proving it? A famous quote attributed to Marcus Aurelius says, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If their thoughts were truly peaceful, they wouldn't need this theatrical display to convince you or themselves. Real contentment doesn't ask for applause. It's easy to feel a twinge of jealousy or regret when confronted with these constant reminders of their amazing new life. You might catch yourself thinking, if they're so joyful, then maybe I was the problem. But remember, social media is a stage, and each post is a carefully directed scene. You're only seeing the polished version of events, complete with the perfect filter and the best angle. Meanwhile, the raw footage might tell a very different story. Like the saying goes, every coin has two sides, and the side they're not showing is often the side that aches for validation. Then comes the question, so what do I do with these feelings? This is where a more stoic perspective can help. Instead of analyzing their every move, pause and focus on your own responses. Epicurus once said, We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. They're not controlling your emotions. Your own mind is. The moment you choose not to engage with the spectacle, you take back your power. When you stop checking on their every update, you stop giving life to the performance. But what if ignoring them makes me look bitter or weak, you might wonder? That's exactly the illusion they're hoping you'll buy into. Sometimes silence is the strongest statement. By not reacting, you remind yourself and them that you aren't trapped in the past. Picture a mighty oak tree in a storm. It doesn't run around trying to prove it's unshaken. It simply stands firm. Your silence is that unmovable trunk. It shows you're rooted in self-control, not swayed by every emotional gust of wind. Eventually, they might feel a certain emptiness when they realize you're not watching anymore. The applause they sought isn't there to echo back, and that's when the performance starts to lose its shine. In those quiet moments, they may reflect on what they lost or what they hoped to gain. Ironically, the less you feed the illusion, the more it collapses under its own weight. In the end, remember this: appearances can be deceiving, and happiness on display can be a powerful mirage. When you recognize that simple truth, you'll understand that genuine contentment needs no stage, no spotlight, and no forced smile. It just exists, calm, steady, and real. Number 2, emotional control. Your secret ace. They think they know you inside and out. They believe they can predict your every move, guess your every thought, and anticipate every ounce of hurt you might be feeling. They assume you'll watch their every post, dissect their every update, and crumble the moment you see them appearing to live their best life. But consider this. What if you stop reacting entirely? What if you remain as silent and unmovable as a mountain? Suddenly the balance shifts, and all the assumptions they made about your behavior lose their edge. Stoicism teaches a powerful lesson. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When you free yourself from the need to respond, you become untouchable. Imagine a fortress with walls so thick that no arrow of provocation can penetrate. That's the kind of inner strength you cultivate by taking charge of your emotions. It's not about denying that you feel pain or confusion. It's about choosing not to let those emotions dictate your every move. A common question might arise: isn't staying silent a sign of weakness, like I'm avoiding reality? In truth, silence often speaks louder than any outburst. Think of a calm lake reflecting the sky above. It may look still, but it holds tremendous depth. When you're composed, it sends a signal that you're secure in yourself and no longer swayed by external drama. It's the same principle behind martial arts masters who remain centered while chaos unfolds around them. Control your center and you control the situation. Another question might be, won't they just think I've given up, that I'm no longer in the picture? Possibly, but that's the key to reclaiming your power. Their attempts to provoke a reaction start to feel hollow when you don't play along. They may post more often or try to flaunt their so-called newfound bliss. They do this because they want to be acknowledged. They want to see some sign they still have a grip on you. When you offer them nothing, that's when they begin to question themselves. Think of it like a magician who thrives on applause. If the audience stops clapping, the trick loses its magic. You might also wonder, why is emotional control so attractive? Because it signals independence. People are drawn to confidence and self-possession like moths to a flame. When you no longer show the cracks in your armor, you shift the narrative. Suddenly, they're the ones questioning their impact. As the saying goes, strength isn't about bearing a cross of grief or shame. It's about bearing the power of your emotions without letting them break you. Over time, they may realize they can't shake you like they once did. That realization can bring an unexpected wave of regret or second-guessing. It's often not the fact that you're hurting that makes them miss you. It's the understanding that they no longer affect you at all. When you master your emotions, rather than letting your emotions master you, you send a clear message. I have my own path, and I choose not to bend to yours. Does this mean you should become cold or unfeeling? Not at all. Stoicism isn't about eliminating emotion. It's about tempering it with wisdom. Allow yourself to experience grief, anger, or sadness, but don't let these emotions steer your life. Epicurus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Embrace what you feel, then channel that energy into building a stronger, more composed self. In the end, true emotional control isn't about winning or losing in someone else's eyes. It's about reclaiming your sense of self, knowing that no matter what they do, you remain firm in your own mind, like a tree standing tall in a storm. You endure unbroken by the winds. That unshakable core is your secret ace, and once you discover it, no external force, no matter how cunning, can make you fold. Number 3, the illusion of replacement. You notice them with someone new, and your stomach tightens as if a sudden chill just swept through you. Your mind races. How could they move on so quickly? Maybe you start picking yourself apart, matching every detail of who you are against this new person in their life. You might even catch yourself wondering, what do they have that I don't? The moment that thought forms, you risk tumbling headfirst into one of the biggest pitfalls after a split, believing that you're somehow replaceable. But here's the raw truth. People don't replace, they distract. When someone leaps into a brand new connection right after things end, they're often trying to dodge the emptiness that would otherwise creep in. It's a distraction from pain, a fast-forward button on feelings they're not ready to face. You might ask, isn't it possible they just found someone better? But ask yourself this: if they had genuinely found something deeper or more meaningful, would they flaunt it so openly? Often, those who rush into a new situation do so because they want to convince themselves, and maybe even you, that they've already healed. It's like painting over a crack in the wall. Yes, it looks fresh at first glance, but the underlying damage remains. As Seneca once said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. If they were genuinely whole, you wouldn't sense such desperation to prove it. It's easy to see this new relationship and assume it's about you. You feel replaced, tossed aside like yesterday's news. But take a step back and imagine someone who's uncomfortable being alone, like a person sitting in a room filled with silence, terrified of what they might hear if they listen too closely to their own thoughts. Instead of facing that quiet, they turn up the music, fill their days with social events, or attach themselves to a new partner. It's a way of running from themselves, of denying the reality that something feels off. They're not replacing you, they're running from a void. Still, a voice in your head asks, what if this time it's different? What if they really did upgrade? Real connections don't form at lightning speed. They develop over time, built on genuine understanding and emotional depth. When someone sprints into a new situation right after parting ways with you, they rarely have the space to reflect, to grow, or to learn from what just happened. Think of it like a traveler who jumps to a new destination without even unpacking from the last trip. They're carrying old baggage, old regrets, and unfinished emotions. This new person in their life is more of a temporary hideout than a real home. You might notice them posting photos or making sure the world knows they're happier than ever, but that display often masks a deeper insecurity. As a well-worn proverb says, empty barrels make the most noise. The louder they proclaim their newfound bliss, the more they're trying to persuade themselves it's true. Real joy doesn't need a stage or a spotlight. It settles quietly into your bones, needing no validation from outsiders. It's also tempting to think you're losing some grand competition. You see them together and assume you're on the sidelines, losing a match you didn't even realize you were playing. But is it really a competition when the other person is just trying to outrun their own unresolved emotions? If they were genuinely over the past, you wouldn't even cross their mind, and they wouldn't go to great lengths to parade their new life. The fact that you still feel haunted by it suggests there's some inner work you need to do, work that has nothing to do with them. As Epicurus would say, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Their actions might trigger your insecurities, but your response is what shapes your reality. A question might come up, so do I just pretend it doesn't bother me? Not exactly. Acknowledge the sting, face that sense of loss or betrayal head on. But don't stay trapped there. Being emotionally honest with yourself is one of the best ways to heal. Journaling, talking with a trusted friend, or spending time cultivating new habits are all better approaches than stalking their every move. When you confront your own discomfort instead of running from it, you break the cycle of feeling powerless. You shift from a reactive mindset to a proactive one, steering your own ship rather than being tossed by someone else's waves. Think of it like standing in front of a carnival mirror. The reflection might look warped, but that doesn't mean it's the truth about who you are. Their new relationship, their photos, their insistent claims of perfect happiness, these can distort how you see yourself. But once you recognize that it's all just a mirror with a bend in it, the illusion loses its power. You remember that your worth isn't defined by who they're with or how quickly they moved on. Over time, they'll eventually slow down because no one can run from their own feelings forever. In the quiet hours, when there's no one left to impress, regrets can echo like a lonely wind through an abandoned house. True connections don't vanish overnight. They leave an imprint that resurfaces when distractions fade. That's often when the weight of regret hits hardest. Meanwhile, you'll have been doing the real work, fostering your own growth, finding stability in your emotional life, and practicing the kind of peace they can't fake. So let them pretend they've replaced you if that's what they want to believe. Allow them their illusions, their stories, their frantic attempts to patch the holes. Because while they're busy running, you'll be standing firm like a tree whose roots delve deep into the ground. You'll discover that true peace, the kind that resonates long after the noise dies down, can never be replicated or replaced by a fleeting distraction. Once you see that clearly, the illusion shatters, and you step forward in a power that no one can take away from you. Number 4, absence speaks volumes. They expect you to hover on the edges of their life, to send a stray message now and then, to keep a tiny window open just so they know you're still there. That's what most people do when a relationship ends. They vanish for a while, but emotions eventually reel them back in, and they hand over their power the moment they break their silence. You, however, are about to understand something that changes everything. Sometimes stepping away is the strongest move you can make. It may sound counterintuitive. You might wonder, why would disappearing help me when part of me wants them to see what I'm going through? But this shift isn't about manipulation or playing hard to get. It's about realizing that when you prioritize your own emotional well-being, you create a space that others can no longer casually occupy. As the saying goes, what is rare is valuable. If you're constantly available, always responding, always looking, there's no room for them to feel your absence or question their own assumptions. Picture 2 musicians on stage. One of them plays non-stop, hammering out notes as if afraid of silence. The other chooses their moments, leaving pauses that make each note ring with clarity. Which performance leaves a stronger impression? Often the pauses speak louder than the sound. Your absence works the same way. When you decide to stop lingering, no more subtle hints you're still watching, no more reactive messages, you become that pause. In that quiet, they start to notice what's missing. A common doubt might emerge in your mind. Won't they just forget about me if I vanish? Realistically, if someone forgets you so easily, it suggests there wasn't much depth to begin with. It's more likely that your disappearance will spark curiosity. People crave validation, recognition, and closure. When you remove yourself entirely from their radar, you present an unresolved question. Where did you go, and why aren't you reacting anymore? That gap can ignite a sense of wonder or even regret, like an itch that won't go away. You might also ask, am I doing this just to make them chase me? No, this isn't a trick. If it's done purely for effect, you're still trapped by your need for their attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If your goal is self-growth and genuine peace, then you're not disappearing to provoke a reaction. You're stepping back to focus on yourself, to heal in your own time and space. That internal shift, the realization that you don't owe anyone an explanation, carries its own power. Consider the difference between a rare gem and a pebble on the beach. The pebble is easy to pick up, discard, and replace. It's one of thousands just like it. But a rare gem is guarded, valued, kept in a special place. If you become a constant presence always within reach, you risk becoming that common pebble. By choosing absence, by not broadcasting your every move or emotion, you protect your value. Over time, others sense that you're not an endless resource for reassurance or drama. You reserve your energy for pursuits that matter to you, your personal growth, your goals, and the relationships that truly enrich your life. Some might worry, isn't silence a form of avoidance? In some cases, sure, running away from problems never solves them. But there's a key difference between avoidance and intentionally creating distance to regain clarity. Sometimes conversations become circular or unproductive, and all that's left is a tangle of emotional impulses. In those moments, stepping away is an act of wisdom. It offers you the chance to clear your head, set your boundaries, and regain a sense of self before re-engaging with the world on your own terms. When you stop orbiting their social media profiles or waiting for them to notice your online presence, you also release yourself from a cycle of constant comparison. You no longer measure your worth by how quickly they reply, how often they post, or whether they appear to be happy without you. This shift may feel uncomfortable at first, but think of it like walking off a stage where you've been performing under glaring lights. Now you get to pause, breathe, and figure out who you are beyond the roles you've been playing. Inevitably, they might start to wonder why your name no longer appears in their notifications. They may even reach out, testing the waters to see if you'll respond. The question then becomes, do you jump back at the first sign of contact? That depends on your intentions. If your peace comes first, you'll proceed cautiously, ensuring you don't fall into old habits. Absence isn't a game. It's a choice that honors the fact that your time, energy, and emotional space are not infinite. Think of a door that's been left slightly ajar. People assume they can wander in and out any time they like, but once you close it, you create a boundary. It might leave them knocking, unsure if they can step back into your life. In that moment, you realize that your silence was never about them. It was about safeguarding your mental and emotional well-being. By disappearing, you're not erasing your past or pretending it never happened. You're recognizing your own worth, choosing to invest in the future rather than replaying old moments. As time passes, you become untouchable in the best sense of the word. You're no longer defined by their expectations or controlled by your insecurities. They might feel regret, curiosity, or confusion, But those feelings are theirs to deal with, not yours. Ultimately, absence speaks volumes in a way words never can. It highlights your value, fortifies your boundaries, and demands respect without needing to utter a single phrase. Rather than setting out to prove something, you refocus on building the life you deserve. And that, in the end, is the true power in stepping back, realizing that you've evolved beyond the old script and discovered a deeper, steadier sense of self that no one else can grant or take away. Number 5. Rise without revenge. Right now, you might be thinking, I want them to regret losing me. I want them to see me thriving and feel the pain they put me through. That's a natural thought, but it's also a trap. When your focus is on making them suffer, you're still holding on to them. You're still looking back. If you're still trying to prove something, you haven't really moved on at all. Revenge is just another form of attachment. If they still control your emotions, if your success is built on the hope that they'll notice, then they still own a piece of you. That's not power, that's just another version of being stuck. True strength isn't proving someone wrong. It's not needing to prove anything at all. Think about it. What's more powerful? A person who posts flashy updates hoping their ex will notice, or someone who silently builds, grows, and moves forward without looking back? One is still trapped in the past, waiting for a reaction. The other is free. You might ask, but don't they deserve to feel what I felt? Maybe, but your life isn't about keeping score. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." If you try to hurt them the way they hurt you, you're only lowering yourself to their level. Instead of breaking the cycle, you become part of it. The truth is, real regret doesn't come from seeing you trying to prove a point. It comes when they realize you don't care anymore. Picture this. They check in on you one day, expecting to see the same person they left behind. They assume you're still hurting, still reacting, but instead, they find nothing. No signs of struggle, no attempts to grab their attention, just silence, just progress. That's when it sinks in. That's when regret starts to cut deep. But here's the thing, you don't do this for them. You don't build a better life just to send a message. You do it because you refuse to stay broken, because you understand that your purpose is bigger than one failed connection. As the saying goes, a lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. A person who has truly moved on doesn't wait for validation. They create their own. So let go of the idea that revenge will set you free. Let go of trying to make them look back. Instead, step into your power quietly, consistently, and with no need for applause. Because the greatest transformation is the one that happens when no one is watching. And by the time they realize what they lost, it won't even matter anymore. Number 6. Mastering the art of detachment. You've been taught to believe that if you just care enough, if you love hard enough, if you show them how much they mean to you, they'll come back. That if you pour every ounce of emotion into them, they'll see your worth. But that's one of the biggest lies ever told. Caring too much doesn't bring people closer, it pushes them away. It makes you predictable, easy to manipulate, and worst of all, it makes you needy. People don't chase what they already own. They don't crave what's readily available. They crave what they can't have. That's human nature. The moment you need someone, you give them the power to decide your worth. But the moment you become self-sufficient, when you no longer rely on their validation, that's when the balance shifts. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about becoming cold or emotionless. Detachment isn't about shutting the world out. It's about understanding that nothing outside of you should have the power to shake your inner peace. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. When you master detachment, you stop reacting to every move they make. You stop feeling the need to prove anything, and that's when people start gravitating towards you. Ask yourself, who holds more power, the person who constantly seeks approval or the one who moves through life with quiet confidence? The person who reacts to every little thing or the one who remains unfazed, choosing their actions instead of being forced into them? What's rare becomes valuable, and nothing is rarer than someone who doesn't beg to be chosen. There will come a time when they test you. They might post things just to see if you react. They might show up in your life again, not because they truly want you, but because they want to know they still could have you. That's not love, that's ego. But the moment they realize they no longer have an effect on you, that's when the regret becomes real. People don't feel loss when you cry over them. They feel loss when they realize you no longer cross their mind. When they see you've stopped checking, stopped chasing, stopped caring, that's when the weight of their decisions finally sinks in. So let go, not to prove a point, not to hurt them, but because a person who controls their emotions controls everything. When you no longer hand over your peace to someone else, you become untouchable. And once you reach that level, the past stops mattering, the games stop working, and you step into a power most people will never understand. Number 7, pain is your power. Right now, you feel it. The weight in your chest, the sleepless nights, the thoughts that won't stop circling back to them. You tell yourself you're fine, but deep down, a part of you is still hurting, still wondering, still stuck. And in that place of pain, you have two choices. Let it consume you, or let it forge you into something stronger. Most people fear pain. They run from it, numb it, drown it in distractions. But Stoicism teaches a different truth. Pain isn't the enemy. Pain is fuel. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The moment you stop resisting pain, stop seeing it as suffering, and start seeing it as a teacher, everything changes. Because pain exists for one reason: to make you stronger. Think about the greatest warriors, leaders, and legends throughout history. None of them were shaped by comfort. None of them were forged in ease. Struggle is what built them. Pain is what refined them. What separates them from the weak is simple. They didn't let pain break them. They transformed it. Right now, you have that same choice. You can sit in this heartbreak, let it define you, let it drain you, or you can take that same fire and use it to rebuild. Train your body until it's a weapon. Sharpen your mind until nothing shakes it. Create something so powerful, so unshakable, that one day you'll look back and realize this pain wasn't here to destroy you. It was here to wake you up. It's easy to wish it never happened, to replay moments in your head and wonder what you could have done differently. But that thinking keeps you trapped. The past is untouchable. You can't rewrite it, but you can use it. Epicurus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." This isn't about revenge. It's not about proving anything to them. It's about proving something to yourself. Because when you rise from this, when you build yourself into something unbreakable, you won't just be over them. You'll be beyond them. You'll see clearly that this was never about them in the first place. It was about unlocking a version of yourself that you might never have reached without this push. So stop wishing it never happened. Accept it. Use it. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who avoid pain. They are the ones who own it, transform it, and turn it into power. Number 8. The moment they feel your absence. Right now they don't feel your loss. Not yet. Because they assume you're still there, still attached, still thinking about them. Even if you're silent, they believe that eventually you'll reach out, that you won't be able to help yourself. But what happens when they realize you're truly gone? When they sense deep in their gut that you've moved forward without hesitation. That's when the regret begins. People don't always feel the weight of their decisions right away. At first, they're distracted, entertained by their new reality, confident in their choices. Maybe they even believe they've made the right move. But time is a patient teacher. Slowly, the silence starts to settle in. The messages they used to ignore stop coming. The person they thought would always care is nowhere to be found. And that's when it starts to sink in, because they didn't just lose someone who was in their life. They lost someone who mattered in their life. Someone who loved deeply, gave genuinely, but also had the strength to walk away when they were no longer valued. That kind of presence is rare, and the more time passes, the more they realize it wasn't just about having you. It was about the way you made them feel, the way you stood firm, the way you carried yourself with a quiet strength that others simply can't replicate. That's when they check in. Maybe it's a late-night text. Maybe it's a random like on an old photo. Maybe it's a mutual friend mentioning that your name came up in conversation. But what do? Nothing, because you don't chase ghosts. You don't look back. And when they finally see that they can't get a reaction out of you, that's when the loss truly hits them. But by then, it's too late, because the version of you they walked away from, that person no longer exists. You've evolved, you've grown. And the best part, you don't even want them back. This is the power of absence, not as a trick, not as a game, but as the natural consequence of someone who knows their worth. Once you understand that, everything changes, and the past stays exactly where it belongs, behind you. Number 9, untouchable, the final lesson. This is the moment when everything shifts, when you stop asking if they miss you and start understanding that it no longer matters. The person you've become doesn't wait for anyone's validation. They don't linger for closure or need anyone's regret to confirm their worth. Imagine a vast ocean at dawn, calm and boundless, where the rising sun isn't dependent on the clouds to shine. That is the essence of true emotional freedom. For a long time, you might have found yourself wondering, do they ever think of me? Or does my absence leave a void? But now you realize that the person you've grown into doesn't have time for such questions. You've learned that seeking validation from someone else is like chasing the wind, an endless, futile pursuit. As Marcus Aurelius once observed, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And your thoughts have evolved. They no longer dwell on whether someone notices your absence or mourns your departure. Instead, they focus on your own growth and the inner peace you've cultivated. Consider the image of a sculptor working on a masterpiece. At one point, every chisel stroke is a reminder of what was there before. But with each careful tap, the statue becomes more refined, more distinct, until the previous form is unrecognizable. In the same way, you've chiseled away at the remnants of your past, refining your character until you stand as a figure of strength and resilience. This transformation wasn't born out of a desire to make someone feel regret. It wasn't about proving that you could move on or that you were better without them. It was about embracing your own worth. And in doing so, you discovered that true power lies in self-mastery. You might ask yourself, is it possible to be completely untouchable? The answer lies not in the absence of emotions, but in mastering them. There will always be memories, and there might always be a flicker of curiosity about what you're doing. Yet what distinguishes someone truly untouchable is that they have learned to let those thoughts pass without clinging to them. They understand that emotional control is not about suppressing feelings, but about recognizing them, processing them, and then letting them go like leaves on a stream. In the words of Epictetus, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And your reaction now is one of serene indifference, a quiet strength that speaks volumes. Imagine yourself as a mighty tree in a storm. The winds may blow and the rain may lash at your branches, but your roots run deep into the earth. When others see that tree, they see resilience, stability, and an unyielding nature. You've reached that point where your inner self is so anchored that no external force can uproot you. It isn't about denying the past or pretending that the hurt never happened. It's about accepting that every experience, every challenge has contributed to the sturdy trunk you now possess. There's also a subtle lesson in understanding that waiting for someone to feel your absence is a relic of a time when your worth was measured by their reactions. That era is over. You now know that genuine strength is not about the approval of those who once mattered, but about the quiet confidence that comes from within. When you stop depending on their acknowledgement, you begin to live on your own terms. You become the author of your destiny rather than a character in someone else's story. The final lesson is that you are never truly defined by the people who have walked away from you, but by the journey you embark upon afterward. Think of it like a melody that changes its tune when the orchestra stops playing. The same old notes, the silence between the notes, creates a space where new music can emerge. A richer, more profound harmony that wasn't there before. In the same way, your silence and absence from someone's life become the backdrop against which your transformation is most clearly seen. It is in that quiet that they may eventually come to understand what they once took for granted. But by that time, you will have already stepped into a realm where your own value is unquestionable. The process of becoming untouchable is gradual. It requires a commitment to self-improvement and a refusal to be tethered by past attachments. It means letting go of the need to be constantly validated and instead finding solace in your own evolution. When you embrace this mindset, every setback becomes a stepping stone, every disappointment a lesson in disguise. Over time, you will notice that the things that once held you back now serve as the very foundation of your resilience. Ultimately, this journey is about liberation. Liberation from the confines of what others think and feel, and a deep understanding that your worth is intrinsic. The final lesson, then, is not about becoming unreachable for the sake of bitterness or isolation. It is about recognizing that when you truly master yourself, you become impervious to external validation. You no longer need to wait for anyone to complete you because you are already whole. And in that completeness, you find an untouchable peace that neither regret nor longing can ever disturb.